So today we will talk about, continue the Hadith Uthman, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh Ibrahim. Hadith Uthman radiyallahu anhu arda, which is describing the wudu of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then we reach when he said, ثُمَّ مَسَحَ بِرَأْسِهِ. He wiped over his head. This also came in Hadith Abdullah ibn Zayd radiyallahu anhu, that وَمَسَحَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم برأسه فأقبل بيديه وأدبر. That the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam wiped over his head with his both hand. أقبل بيده وأدبر. He went forward, then he came back. He went forward, then came back. In another narration, بدأ بمقدم رأسه. He starts with the beginning of his hair, okay, where his forehead is, إلى قفاه, all the way to the back of his neck. Then فردهما إلى المكان الذي بدأ منه. Then he returned it back all the way to the front. Hadith reported by al-Bukhari wa Muslim. وعن عبد الله بن عمرو بن العاص, that he مسح برأسه, he wiped over his head, وأدخل أصبعيه السباحتين في أذنيه, and he put his index fingers inside his ear. ومسح بإبهاميه, he wiped with his thumbs, ظاهر أذنيه, the back of his ear, okay, or the appearing part of his ear, reported by Abu Dawood wa Nasa'i. In one narration, okay, in Sunan Abi Dawood, that he entered his hand in the water, then masaha ra'sa, then he wiped his head, okay. So in one of the narrations, Sunan Abi Dawood, that fi Hadith Uthman, the one we have, that the author brought, or the just I read from Hadith Abdullah ibn Zayd, they said he wiped over his head. So he washed his face, then he wiped over his head. When he said then or and, he wiped his head, that means with the same water that he washed his face, whatever left in his hand, wiped over his head. In Sunan Abi Dawud, there is more detailed description. ثم أدخل يده فأخذ ماء. He put his hand inside the water, where he took water, then he wiped over his head. This narration in Sunan Abi Dawood shows that he used a new water to wipe over his head. The hadith or the narration that the Ibn Hajar rahimahullah mentioned, Abdullah ibn Zayd, that he wiped over his head, also came in another narration in Muslim. He said, وَمَسَحَ رَأْسَهُ بِمَاءٍ غَيْرِ فَضْلِ يَدَيْهِ أو غَيْرِ فَضْلِ يَدِهِ. He basically wiped over his head with water different than the water that remained in his hand after washing the face. يعني إيش؟ غير بفضل بماء غير فضل يدي، يعني بغير الماء الذي فضل من إيش؟ من غسل وجهه. So that means a new water. And it is sunnah, okay? But let's say you wash your face like this. Then whatever left in your hand, your hand wet, that's right? You wipe over your head. Al-ulama rahimahullah agree that your wudu is correct. And you don't need to, you put your hand and you take wudu every time. It is only sunnah to take fresh water. You follow me? So it is only sunnah to take fresh water. Al-Hasan al-Basri and Ata and al-Nakha'i, كلهم صحح هذا. All of them said this is acceptable. Also, never been reported that النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان ينفض يديه قبل مسح شعره. That the Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم will basically, when he take water, he will not ايش ينفض يديه يعني shake off. Yeah, very good. He will shake off the water before he wipe over his head. So if he take new water, it never been reported that he will shake it off before he wipe over his head. كان ابن عمر رضي الله عنه يقول كان ابن عمر لا ينفضهما. Ibn Umar رضي الله عنه, he never basically shook off the water from his hand. Also, Ata said لا أنفضهما. Ata said, I will not shake the water off and I will keep it wet. Whatever, he put his hand in the water and he make them wet, then he wipe over his head. ورد عن ابن عباس, a narration in Sunan Abi Dawood, You remember I told you there is many people narrated how the Prophet made wudu. Among them Abdullah ibn Umar, among them Ibn Abbas, among them Abu Hurairah, among them Abdullah ibn Zayd, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, and so forth. So in one of the ahadith, Ibn Abbas said, ثم قبض قبضة من الماء ثم نفض يديه ثم مسح بها رأسه. Basically, that Ibn Abbas took a handful of water. He put water in his hand. Then he shook it off, or he basically shook it off. Then he wiped over his head. You following? قبض قبضة. What's قبض قبضة means? Basically, he filled his hand. He filled his hand with, basically, his palm with water. Then he let it go. Then he wiped over his head. This is the only narration we have that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam have let the water or shook it off or let it go from his hand. And this is only narration came Ibn Abbas radiallahu an. Is there any contradiction between this and what we just said earlier? Al-ulama rahimahumullah said there is no contradiction. Why? Because when you take fresh new water for your hand to wipe over your head, you are one of two. قالوا إما أن تبلل يدك فهذه لا تنفض. Either you wet your hand, let's say the faucet is on, you just put your hand in it, or you dip your hand in a water, let's say a container of water, you dip your hand in it, or you put your hand under the faucet or somebody pouring the water, and you make it wet, then you pull it out, then you wipe. In this case, you don't shake off the water. Or you did what Ibn Abbas did and described, which is he قبض قبضة من الماء, which is when you take a good amount of water in your hand like this. So you have actually hand filling your palms. In this case, you have to let the water go. You have to shake it off. Because if you didn't shake it off, what's going to be the issue? That's going to be what? Wiping or washing? Washing your head. That's right. If you take the water in your hand, like what Ibn Abbas said, قبض قبضة, with his hand full, if you take the water and you put it in your head, that means washing your head. And this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, that you wipe, you don't wash your head. That's why he let the water goes. Is that clear? That's how ulama rahimahumullah have combined between these narrations. Another issue here, which is how many times you wipe over your head. Is it 1 time, 3 times, 2 times, 5 times? What is it? A sunnah is to take your hand and you go all the way to the back and you come back. So going all the way back and coming back to where you start from, that's considered 1. And the sunnah is to do it 1 time. That's the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, and the Malikis, and the Hanafi, and one riwayah from Shafi'iyya. And I want to say that because the famous things that the Shafi'i doesn't say that. If you read in most of the books, they will not say Shafi'i said 1 time. Most of the books will refer to Imam Shafi'i that he believes more than 1 time, 3 times. لكن هذه الرواية أحب أن ننبه عليها لأن الترمذي رحمه الله أشار إليها في سننه. That the Tirmidhi rahimahullah mentioned that the Shafi'i believed it 1 time. And that's one narration at least from Ash-Shafi'i. Also, Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said that 1 time. Ali ibn Abi Talib, Talha ibn Masraf, Hamad ibn Zayd, Al-Imam Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, Al-Hasan al-Basri, Mujahid, Abu Thawr. And this is one narration from Ata wa Sa'id wa Salim ibn Abdullah. I will tell you, I'm saying this because this is show you there is so many scholars have from the successors and the early generations said that you only wipe over your head 1 time. Bal Abu Ubaid exaggerates, and he said, قال لا أعلم أحدا نقل عليه تكرار المسح على الرأس إلا إبراهيم التيمي. Abu Ubaid said no one from the early generations, yani Sahaba, the successors, ever been reported that he said you wipe more than 1 time except Ibrahim al-Taymi, is a great scholar from al-Tabi'in. But this is basically not accurate. Not accurate. And here I want to say something, that sometimes you might see some of the ulama, rahimahumullah, would say that it is, no one ever said that, okay? Or it is only, no one of the Salaf ever took that position, okay? Like what we gave an example last time, which is what? Al-madmadah wal-istinshaq, that's right? Rinsing, that we said, Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah said, no one from the Salaf ever basically said it's wajib, that's right? To rinse your mouth. But this is not true. This is not true. That I think Ammar last time he said, how come no one of the Salaf ever said that? But that's, sometimes the ulama make statement like this, but it's not necessarily it's an accurate statement. That's why I told you, him not knowing that somebody did that, it doesn't mean that nobody did that. Does that make sense? That's why for al-madmad wal-istinshaq, for instance, هو قول عطاء وقول الزهري وابن المبارك وحماد وابن أبي ليلى. All this from a Salaf, they said that you must rinse your mouth and you must basically snip the water inside your nose and you blow it out. So it's not true that it has not been ever reported that anyone took that position. So the same thing here, when he said there's only Ibrahim al-Taymi said that, that's not a very accurate, as you will see. Because Anas radiyallahu anhu ardah, and this is in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, مسح رأسه ثلاثا. He wiped over his head 3 times. And Ibrahim al-Taymi, Ibn Hazm mentioned that he did 3 times. But also Ibn Hazm mentioned that this is also Sa'id ibn Jubair, the great scholar among the successors, وميسرة, and other scholars from the Tabi'een, been reported that they wiped over their heads more than 1 time. That's why Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah said it is sunnah to wipe over your head 3 times. Okay? And that's the famous narrations from Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah. And Imam al-Shafi'i based his opinion on one narration for Hadith Uthman, the one we're studying, وَمَسَحَ رَأْسَهُ ثَلَاثًا. One of the narrations said, and he wiped over his head 3 times. But this narration is weak because it's been reported by Ibn Darah, Mawla Uthman, وهو مجهول. The one who narrated this from Uthman is an unknown narrator, as Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah said. And everybody else who narrated this story from Uthman never said that he did 3 times. So when you have a weak narrator narrating something contradict what the authentic, the trustworthy narrator narrated, what do we call this narration? لا. الشاذ إذا روى الثقة ما يخالف الأوثق أو الثقات. But when الضعيف, the weak, which is مجهول, unknown, narrate something contradict the others, we call this worse than shad. We call it munkar al-hadith, which is when الضعيف, the weak, goes against the trustworthy. We call this riwayah munkara. Ata bin said that he wiped over his head 3 times. But when you look carefully, you'll find that he did this with 1 hand. Okay? And he never took new water every time. So you might say, with 1 hand he did 3, maybe because 1 hand he cannot wipe over his head at 1 time. Okay? So that's why he did it 3 times, just to make sure that he covered all his head. Not because he believed repeating it is sunnah. So that Ata, because Ata is a great scholar, and him being among those who take that position will make that opinion very strong. From a fiqh perspective, pure fiqh perspective, it makes no sense to say to wipe over it 3 times. Anybody can tell me why? From a fiqh, from a logical perspective. The brothers are online. From a fiqh, now not based on hadith, from a logical, from like logically, it makes no sense to say 3 times. Okay, The logic comes from multiple areas. Number one, العلماء يقولون الغسل المقصود منه الإنقاء. When the Sharia order us to wash something, it means you have to clean it. But when you wipe over something, it's not meant for cleaning. That's right. When you wipe over your socks, you meant to clean your socks? Is that right? When you wipe over the bandage, the jabira, it meant to clean it? When you wipe over the imama, you meant to clean it? No. So the cleaning part, which has to do with what? With the washing. Well, inqa, it means to the whole thing, to do it perfect. That's why the most of the ahadith speak about the repetition 3 times has to do with what? With the hands and the feet, as I said last time. Because it's an area you need to clean it very well, and it's a big areas where you might miss something. But if the hair, the point is wiping, so it's not about really cleaning the hair. So that's why repeating it 3 times makes no sense, because al-inqa laysa al-maqsood min al-masih. Does that make sense to you guys? Shama? Also they said, al-qiyas, analogy. Look at everything we've been ordered to wipe over. None of it ever, you do it 3 times. Like the socks, or the khuf, or al-jabira, the basically to wipe over the any band-aid, or you cast your hand or anything like that. You don't wipe over 3 times. Al-imama, the turban. So that's why we say we don't do it 3 times. Even in tayammum, you don't do it 3 times. Because al-inqa laysa huwa al-maqsood fi al-masih. In tayammum, you make masih, wiping. So that's from a fiqh perspective, okay, make basically perfect sense. Also, one of the things that maybe support that idea that you don't repeat, what Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu said, and the hadith, we have it here, we have part of it, that a man came to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ showed him how to make wudu. So he basically, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ya Rasulullah, show me how to make wudu. So the Prophet performed wudu in front of him. Then he said, he washed his hand 3 times, he washed his face 3 times, he washed his arms 3 times. Then, وَمَسَحَ بِرَأْسِهِ, he wiped over his head, and he used his fingers inside his ears, and he basically wiped it. The hadith that I just mentioned earlier. Then he washed his feet 3 times. So every time he said 3 times except what? Wiping over the head. That's right. He didn't mention it 3 times. Then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, هَكَذَا الْوُضُوء. He said, this is how the wudu should be. فَمَنْ زَادَ عَلَى هَذَا أَوْ نَقَص فَقَدْ أَسَاءَ وَظَلَمَ أَوْ ظَلَمَ وَأَسَاءَ. This is how the wudu is. Whoever add to it, or basically take from it something, add to it or take something from it, have done wrong, and basically ظلم, transgress. So that means the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said once, so if you add, you have transgressed, because you add something not from the sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I just want to mention something, that this hadith is a problematic. Anybody knows what's the problem in this hadith? There is a problem in the hadith, that the text that I just read. أو نقص. He said anybody will increase or decrease. أو نقص, that means or decrease type question. Can you wash your hand 2 times? Yes. Came in the sunnah that he did it once? Yes. So how come he said أو نقص فقد أساء? That's why العلماء رحمهم الله, like Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar and Al-Sindi in بحث جميل له في حاشيته, he said that this riwayah, this additions, أو نقص إنما هي شاذة, wrong. They call him وهم من أوهام الراوي. والذي يظهر أن الإمام أبو عوانة رحمه الله هو من وهم فأدخلها في الرواية. And this is an addition that's been added to the hadith, and it is wrong. There is no أو نقص. There is no or decrease. Other ulama said no, even if naqas is authentic, decrease, or he took out, basically he reduced, they said he meant أو أنقص عضوا من الأعضاء. يعني he basically didn't wash one of the parts of the bodies. Or أنقص بمعنى نقص في إتمام الوضوء. يعني he didn't complete his hand, he didn't complete his face, he didn't complete wiping over his head. That's what naqas means. But many of the ulama talked about how weak this addition naqas is. Basically, naqas it means decrease or took off something from it. How you wipe over your head. Al-Imam ibn Abdul Barr, which is a great scholar in hadith, he has a very beautiful book, it's called Al-Istidhkar. He's a Maliki scholar, but he is encyclopedia. He lived in Al-Andalus, rahimahullah. And he cares about all the opinions of that he's aware of from fuqaha al-Shafi'iyyah wa ghayrihim. But you have to be careful when people like this from Al-Andalus, they're not very experts in the opinions of Ahl al-Iraq, the opinions of fuqaha al-Iraq. And fuqaha al-Iraq will include the Hanabila and the Ahnaf. So sometimes you have to review what they claim because they might be missing the opinion or not having a full knowledge of the opinion of fuqaha al-Iraq in general. Anyway, so Imam ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah قال أجمع العلماء all agreed أن من عمم المسح, anyone who wipe over his head بمقدم أو مؤخر أم أوسط رأسه فهو مجزئ. He said anyone who wipe over his head in general, it is sufficient. He starts from here, from the beginning, from his forehead. He starts from the back, or start from the middle. By the way, Imam Ahmad has a narration when he asked how the wudu in the head, he said like this. He said you start from the middle, then you go to the front and to the end. So there is, it doesn't matter really. And I think what Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he doesn't mean by doing this or saying this is to make this is what the sunnah necessarily is, as much as trying to tell you it is permissible to do it in any way you want. Okay? But there is a debate طبعا between the scholars how they understood the narrations. So some of them said you start من الشعر المنسدل على الناصية إلى القفا. They said you start from the hair that in the forehead all the way to the back of your head. Then you come back to your forehead. You back from the back of your neck all the way to the forehead. قالوا هذه واحدة. And this is supported by the narration that I said earlier, the narration of Ibn Zayd, the hadith that I mentioned, which is بدأ بمقدم رأسه, start with the forehead all the way to the back of his qafa, the back of his neck, then ردهما, then he came back. Very explicit. قال مالك هذا أبلغ ما سمعت في صفة المسح. And Imam Malik said this is the clearest narration we have in regard to this issue. Very clear, very explicit. And that's how Abu Hanifa rahimahullah said the wiping over the head should be. Like this, then you come back. And this is Imam Malik, this is Imam Shafi'i, also Imam Ahmad, and an overwhelming number of scholars from the Tabi'een and the successors and the follower of the successors. Also, Humayd was asked, Anas radiallahu anhu, when he used to do this, كان يقلب شعره قال لا. What that means? كان يقلب شعره قال لا. يعني when he wiped over his head, okay, he used to basically put his hand underneath the hair and flip the hair, like mess the hair. No. يعني somebody, for example, the only one who has a long hair is Muhammad and Ahmed here. So imagine, Muhammad, for example, will go like this, and if you go like this, what will happen to your hair if you go the opposite and you put your hand under the hair? It will be a mess, that's right? So no, same thing. Imagine you go like this, then you go like this. I guess for you it's going to be the same. No, it's going to be like all over the place. Sisters will be even more problematic, that's right? So he said, no, the point is to wipe over it, not to move the hair. So it's not like you put your hand inside the hair and you move it. It's not like massaging your head or no, it is wiping over. So it is still, the hair will stay in the same basically way. You just swipe over back and forth. قال لا يقلب ولا ينفش باليدين. طيب. But also been narrated عن الحسن ibn Hay. He said the opposite. You start from the back and you go all the way to the front. And their point, those who, and there is some scholars said that, and they based this opinion on a narration لحديث العفراء بنت معوذ, one of the people who described the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. She said كان يبدأ بمؤخر رأسه ثم مقدمه. He starts with the back of his head all the way to the front. Reported by أبي داود والترمذي والبيهقي. لكن الحافظ ابن حجر رحمه الله في كتابه البديع تلخيص الحبير, he said that this is مضطرب. This narration is مضطرب. It is, the narration have so many different ways been narrated by that narrator that make us don't trust that narrator anymore. And that's why they said it's weak, as well as an Imam ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah ta'ala. One of the narration, she said from the middle to the front, from narration from the front to the back. So the narration of this hadith came in a different way, they contradict each other. That's why we said muttarib. So that particular narrator who narrated that hadith, in this narration, we don't accept his statement because it's kind of he contradicting himself. How much you wipe from your head? How much you wipe from your head? A sunnah to wipe most of your head. This is the recommended act. A sunnah, most of your head. Like what you heard me. The Prophet used to go all the way back, then he comes back to the front. So a sunnah an tu'ammim al-mas. Ibn Abdul Barr said this is ijma'. There is no different opinion between the scholars about this. That it is recommended. Okay? Kama ajma'u. Also they agreed. All of them said the best way to do it is to go over most of your head. So most of your hair will be wiped over. أيضا أجمعوا, all of them agree أن اليسير الذي لا يقصد إسقاطه متجاوز عنه. If there is basically a little bit of hair here and there, like let's say I wipe like this. You know, here there is some hair maybe I didn't wipe over. In the back, maybe in the way, all the way in the back here, my finger didn't reach. That's right. Maybe some in the middle, in between my hand. They said these little things. All ulama, all of them, regardless what their position is, all of them said it's forgiven. You don't need to worry about it. Because we don't want people to start like, oh my God, this is like one hair here, or you know, there's a little bit of hair missing. Make sure that everything is going to be a shower afterwards. You know, and that's not the point. The point is, if there is something missing, this is basically forgiven. But they debated over how much is obligatory upon you to do. So everybody said that's the best. But some ulama said it is the best and it is must. It's the best, but also it's must. That tu'ammim al-sha'r, يعني most of your hair will be wiped over. وهذا مذهب أحمد رحمه الله. And also the famous opinion of Imam Malik رحمه الله. And Imam al-Muzani, who's a Shafi'i scholar, choose that opinion. And Ibn al-Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim رحمه الله أقام معركة ليس لها حد في نصرة هذا القول. Ibn Taymiyyah رحمه الله and Ibn al-Qayyim in Zad al-Ma'ad, oh my God, they were so excited and so strong in supporting this opinion. So you have the Ahmad, you have the famous opinion of the Shafi'iyya, al-Malikiyya, and you have some Hanbali as well. And what is their proof? That it is must. Wajib. That you wipe over your whole hair, basically all your hair. قالوا, how many times the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made wudu? Hundreds of times. How many companions described his wudu? Many. We just have a hadith of 22 companions reported to us how the Prophet ﷺ made wudu. Thousands of people reported and narrated how the Prophet ﷺ made wudu. That's right? And that's the strongest evidence. Ibn Taymiyyah always bring it back into the argument. He said, in all these narrations, not a single time in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever said or did or approved or give a hint that you allowed to wipe some of your head and leave some. All these narrations are basically supporting one, or narrating to us and reporting one thing, that he wiped most of his head, all the way to the back and come back to the front of his head. Okay? So that's their biggest proof. Also they said, he said, the ibadat is consistent. قالوا هل في الوضوء يوجد أي شيء يغسل بعضه ويمسح بعضه ويترك? Is in wudu anything it called you do part of it? يعني your hand, do part of the hand and you don't need to do the whole thing. You wash part of your face but you didn't. Say why the head is different. They said you have to treat them all the same. You following, guys? Okay, good. Also they said that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he had the imamah, the turban, he wiped over what? The whole entire what? Turban. He wiped over the whole entire turban. He didn't wipe part of it, so that's because it's a replacement for the head here. So that shows you even when there is a turban on, he wiped over the whole thing. قالوا هذا يدل على التعميم. The second opinion, or the other opinion, which is the opinion of the vast majority of the fuqaha, they said wiping over the whole entire head is sunnah, but is not must. Is not must. They said even if you wipe part of your head, it's enough. Part of your head will be enough, but you don't need to do the whole head. Then they debated among themselves how much you have to wipe over your head would be enough. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah came with something very specific. He said 25%, ربع الرأس. And in another he said مقدار ثلاثة أصابع. And the Hanafi said as much as 3 fingers. Ibn Hazm rahimahullah said وهذا يعني Ibn Hazm became very aggressive against this, and he said there is no proof for that, he made this up. But he didn't. Ibn Hazm is wrong. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and the Hanafi who said that, they have proof. What their proof? They looked at what has been reported from a Salaf, and they found they have multiple proof. Number one, they said that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, when he had his turban on, he pushed it back and he wiped over nasiyati ra'sih, the part of the head that is here in the front of his hair. Then he wiped over the rest of the what? Of the turban. You following, guys? So that part, he said that's like almost 1/4 of the head. Okay? And or 3 fingers like this. Okay? If you put them the width, that's about it. So they said that's what basically they came up with this. Also they said that Ibn Umar radiallahu an masaha binafukhi ra'sih. What's a nafukh? Is basically, do we call this bangs also for men? The bangs? Okay? So the bangs or the hair in the basically on your forehead, he wiped over this, that's it. And Aisha radiallahu anha, when she was asked about women, she said, you only wipe over the bangs or the front of your hair, and that will be sufficient. Aydan, this has been reported that Ibn Umar did that, as I said. Aisha said that. Salamah ibn al-Akwa' said that. Radiallahu anhum ajma'een. Also, you have great scholars among the successors said that. Like who? Al-Hasan al-Basri, Al-Imam al-Sha'bi, Ibrahim al-Sha'bi, Al-Imam Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, masaha ala nafukhi ra'sih. Al-Imam al-Layth ibn Sa'd, this is his position. Al-Imam al-Awza'i, this is his position. Al-Imam ibn al-Mubarak, this is his position. Al-Imam Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, this is his position. And I said this is also Imam Ahmad rahimahullah and Al-Imam Malik. and Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. But Abu Hanifa more of decided what exactly is basically restricted with basically fourth of the head or that amount. Narrations. قول عن أحمد. One narration from Malik, المشهور في Malik, the famous. But one narration from Ahmad, one narration from Malik. الشافعية, they said, we don't have to wipe over the whole thing. But they said not even the bangs or the forehead, the front of your hair. قالوا لو مسح شعره, one single hair, it's enough. طبعا one single hair or couple of hairs هذا لم ينقل قط عن أحد من السلف. That's never been reported. Any one of the salaf said a single hair or two hairs. But that position, they said even if it's a little bit, that's a position Ibn Hazm, Al-Tabari, Al-Baghawi, he's a Shafi'i, Ibn al-Mundhir, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, Al-Shawkani also, he was so strong in supporting that idea. And what is their proof? In both groups, they said that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wiped over his forehead, like the hair in the front of his head, then he wiped over the Imam. Okay? This hadith that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wiped over the hair, then the Imam, هو حديث المغيرة ibn Shu'bah. It's a very famous hadith, hadith al-Mughirah ibn Shu'bah, that he pushed back the Imam, then he wiped over the forehead or the head in the front, then the rest of the Imam. Okay? I'm sorry, it died. هذا الحديث, this narration in particular, only that he pushed back and he wiped over the hair and the head, رواها حمزة, the son of Al-Mughira. Okay? But everybody else, okay, everybody else who narrated this hadith never ever said that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam pushed back the turban and wiped over the head and the turban. Everybody said he only wiped over what? The turban. You guys following me? Bismillah. No, the other way. Okay? So everybody else, أصحاب المغيرة, the students, Masruq, Qubaysa, Fidala, Ibn Burma, all who narrated this hadith, they never mentioned that he ever pushed back and wiped the hair and the turban. Everybody said wipe over the turban. ولذلك, we call this in علم الحديث what? شاذ. Even though Ibn al-Mughira, Hamza, is a trustworthy, but because even though he's trustworthy, he goes against large number of other narrators, narrated in a different way, we leave his narration. Because we have 4 or 5 people who are so well known, who are much better than him in narrations, more narrations they have delivered to us and we know them very well. They did something different than him. In this case, we leave his narration. And because of this, the Hanafi rahimahumullah, not all of them took that position. Not all of them agree that only part is enough. Some of them joined that Malik and Ahmed, and they said you have to wipe over the whole head. Also we say, in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even let's assume it's correct that he wiped over the forehead, any part of his hair and the Imam. Isn't that proof that you must wipe over the whole thing? Because if it's part of the hair is sufficient, he should have done the part of the hair and left. Why would he wipe over the imam? He doesn't need to, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if that was sufficient. Okay? But to be honest with you, this also argument is not very strong, because the majority of the fuqaha said wiping over the imamah, it doesn't mean that we have to wipe over the whole thing. You know, he didn't wipe over the whole entire imamah, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Same thing with the socks. You don't wipe over the whole entire socks. Just part of it will be sufficient. And if you take and you wipe over a little bit of your socks, half of your socks, wouldn't it be sufficient? Sufficient. Nobody said you have to wipe over the whole thing. طيب, Shafi'i rahimahullah also has reported in his Musnad, or I think in his book I couldn't recall it right now, but he narrated the narration where he said, حسر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن رأسه ومسح حسر عمامته حسر عن عمامته ثم مسح بمقدم رأسه. Shafi'i has a narration that the Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم removed the imamah, his turban, and he only wiped the front of his head. You following? So this is the claim that the Nabi never did, that's not true. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah is a Shafi'i. Yeah, and he tried to support this narrations as much as he can. So let's squeeze it in. This narration من رواية عطاء عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, وعطاء تابعي. عطاء is mursal, hadith mursal. He never met the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, so you needed someone in the middle. So that's weak. So Ibn Hajar rahimahullah went and he got another narration in Sunan Abi Dawood where basically connected all the way to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the problem with this narration in Sunan Abi Dawood, it has a man, his name Abu Ma'qil, and Abu Ma'qil is weak. So that, but Ibn Hajar rahimahullah said, we have the riwayah of Ata, which is mursal, and we have one which is mawsul, even if it's weak, that give us the confidence that there is link all the way to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so we can accept it. Okay? But if you want to be a technical, no, you have to bring an authentic narrations, okay, to back this up. No doubt there is a big debate, and all these are great scholars and everybody has a point here, but the majority of ulama rahimahullah will not take that as a clear evidence. Also, Shafi'iyya, they have very strong evidence. They have not very, I don't know if it's strong or not, but it is one of the strongest points. They said Allah said in the Quran, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. Why? Over your head. I don't know how this can be translated because it's very technical in Arabic. بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, over your head. They said the ba, which is over here, translate to over. الباء في لغة العرب تدل على التبعيض. الباء, one of the meaning of ba here, it means part. So they said, you translated, wipe over part of your head. It's like when I say, أخذت بيدك. I took your hand. بيدك, or أخذت بثوبه. I held his thobe. It means I held the whole entire thobe or part of the thobe. Part of your clothes, part of your hand, which is your palm, maybe your finger, that's right? Doesn't mean I took the whole thing. So al-ba, they said, it means part. Especially if it comes with a fi'l, a verb, يتعدى بنفسه. A verb that it is basically can have an impact on al-maf'ul in its own. طيب, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. Versus when you add al-ba to fi'l, that it cannot have a maf'ul by itself directly, it need a connection in the middle, we call that fi'l غير متعدي. You need a connection, you need a letter to connect the fi'l and the maf'ul. Those who understand Arabic will know what I'm talking about, hopefully. Okay? They said, you need it. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلْيَطَّوَّفُوا بِالْبَيْتِ الْعَتِيقِ. قالوا هذا التطويف فعل غير متعدي يحتاج إلى الحرف أدخل عليه. فيكون هنا الباء يسمونها للإلصاق. يعني when you make tawaf, you come closer to al-Kaaba. You can't be like outside in the city making tawaf around the Kaaba in your car driving around the Kaaba. No. If somebody tell you, Ya akhi, I'm making tawaf, I'm in my car, I'm making 7 rounds around the Kaaba. You know what? I'm making my helicopter, making tawaf by helicopter. We say no. Why? Because Allah said, وَلْيَطَّوَّفُوا بِالْبَيْتِ. Al-ba' here lil-ilsaq, يعني you come close to the al-Kaaba. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, امسحوا برؤوسكم, wipe your head. Is al-ba' here lil-ilsaq? يعني it means you wipe where you put your hand over so it touch your hair. And you say, why? You can, what's the meaning? Ibn Taymiyyah said there is an extra meaning. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, امسحوا رؤوسكم, wipe your head, like this in Arabic, you will say there is no need for water. Because the word اغسلوا cannot be done without water. But imsahu can be done without water. So Ibn Taymiyyah said, the ba' here, imsahu biru'usikum, to tell you that you have to have something in your hand and you have to tulsiqha bisha'rik, to stick it to your head, which is the water, to wipe over. So that's a very balaghi, very eloquent way of saying it. Otherwise, technically, if there is no ba', it could mean you just wipe over your head with your dry hand. And it will become absolutely in Arabic language acceptable. The group, the Hanbalis and those of Ibn Taymiyyah and that, the other direction, the other side, they were so furious against the Shafi'iyya. And they said, how come you say al-ba' lit-tab'id? Even they said, Sibawayh rejected the idea that al-ba' ever comes to means partial or part of التبعيد. ابن قالوا أنه رده في 20 موضعا من كتابه الكتاب. Ibn Burhan in Sahib al-Lum'a, today I was researching it a little bit, and I found that he's a very famous scholar. He said, من زعم أن الباء للتبعيض فقد جاء أهل اللغة بما لا يعرفونه. Whoever claimed that al-ba' here, it means part of your hair, have come up with something not known to anyone understand Arabic. And al-Ukburi, who's also a great Imam, he has a book called إملاء ما من نبيه الرحمن in إعراب القرآن. He said, من قال هذا لا خبرة له بالعربية. This is a person who doesn't understand Arabic very well, not expert in Arabic. Ibn Jinni, which is one of the biggest name when it comes to Arabic language, قال في سني has a book called صناعة الإعراب. قال هذا منكر. This is rejected to claim that it's al-ba' lit-tab'id. Doesn't know. We don't know in Arabic language that al-ba' comes lit-tab'id. I want to tell you, sometimes when you see this, like Ibn Taymiyyah puts these and more statements like this. And Ibn al-Qayyim and some of the Maliki, some of the fuqaha put that. هذا التهويل, this exaggeration and like coming full force, to deny that in Arabic language, ba' comes lit-tab'id completely like this, I am not very comfortable with that. Because هذا قول الكوفيين من النحات. Many of the Kufis, scholars in Arabic language, said al-ba' comes lit-tab'id. And in the top of that list who said that, Imam al-Asma'i rahimahullah, and Abu Ali al-Faris, and Imam Ibn Malik, Sahib al-Alfiyya as well. And it's a thing that's known in Arabic language, and I don't think I need to drag into this more than this, because not everybody, it looks like, into this issue. Also, never been reported that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever, when he wiped over his head, أنه مسح قفاه. Some people do that, they wipe over the neck, okay? And over their neck, never been reported. طيب, the hadith, which is hadith ibn Zayd, فذهب بهما إلى قفاه. He went to his neck, or to the back of his neck. يعني towards the back of, يعني إلى جهة قفاه. But it doesn't mean he wiped his neck. Okay? And in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, just for the record, in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wiped his head and wiped the back of his neck. لكن هذا الحديث منكر كما قال الإمام أحمد رحمه الله. He said this narration is munkara, is batil, is rejected, is wrong, as the Imam Ahmad رحمه الله have said. Also, the rules of a bald person is the same rule of a person with hair. So let's say you have a hair in the middle, okay, and on the sides, mashallah, يعني free. Okay? In this case, we say you still to wipe over your head, the bald area and the hair area. Those who said you have to wipe the whole entire area or the hair, they will say the whole head has to be wiped over. Those who said part of it, so any part, the hair or the head, will be enough. الصحابة رضي الله عنهم were bald or not? Was the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever bald? In Umrah, in Hajj. That's right? طيب. When the Sahaba shaved their heads in Umrah and Hajj, did it ever been reported that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the companions made wudu in a different way? No. So that means it takes the, since nobody reported something different, it takes the same rule. So whatever you used to do with hair, without hair is the same thing. But what about women? Ibn al-Musayyib said, rahimahullah, and this is reported by al-Bukhari mu'allaqan, and Ibn Abi Shayba wasalahu fi musannafih, he said that there is no difference between men and women in the way you wipe their head. As well, Ibn Abdul Barr, so Ibn Abdul Barr ايش يقول؟ يقول أجمع العلماء, all of them agreed that women and men are same in the way they wipe their heads. He said this in التمهيد. بس هذه أيضا ملاحظة, something you keep in mind. Many of those scholars like Ibn Abdul Barr, when he said أجمع العلماء, he might be referring to the Malikis. Like Nawawi used this a lot. Nawawi said أجمع العلماء. And after a while you find that he recognized that the Imam Malik say something different. Abu Hanifa, but he meant the ulama agreed, the Shafi'i scholars. Because inside every madhab you might have multiple positions. طيب. Is there a different opinion? Yes. Al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah was asked how the woman wiped her head. And he said like this. He put his hand in the middle, then فَجَرَّهُ إِلَى مُقَدِّمَةٍ. He said like this and like this. He start from the middle and he go to the front, so she will not basically have a mess hair. She will not miss her hair. Al-Khallal rahimahullah said, في مذهب أحمد, the correct opinion in مذهب الحنابلة, إذا مسحت مقدم رأسها أجزأها, وده نص عليه ابن قدامة في المغني. If she wipe only her bangs, the front of her hair, that will be sufficient. Okay? Al-Imam al-Thawri, Sufyan al-Thawri said, لو لم تصب إلا شعرة واحدة أجزأها. ولعل هذا يشبع لكلام الشافعي رحمه الله, وينقض من يقول أنه لم ينقل عن السلف قط. يمكن هذا أكثر ما يمكن أن ترى من السلف. Sufyan al-Thawri رحمه الله said, if a woman wipe one hair from her hair, wipe over one hair, it will be enough. طيب, question. What if someone has a long hair? Your hair is long, or the woman's hair is long. She wipe over the whole entire hair? Just what? Why? Why only the head, Abdullah? Doctor. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a long hair, and it to his shoulder. It's not reported that he wiped over his hair. Okay? But what's the Quran said? وَامْسَحُوا what? بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. He said wipe over your head. He didn't say wipe over your hair. He said head. If he said over your hair, you have to cover all the hair. But he said the head. So whatever the head end, that's where you end, which is basically the back of your neck here. Is it clear? واضح? Okay. قال وللمرأة المسح يعني we say that woman is allowed to wipe over her khimar, over her hijab. And I want to say this specifically, وإن لم يكن مشدودة هكذا نص الإمام العطاء والحسن البصري وابن أبي ليلى وغيرهم من العلماء, that even if the khimar is not very tight, in another word, is not very difficult to open it. Okay? يعني it's easy to undo the khimar, but she's allowed to wipe over it, even if it's easy to open the khimar and to put her hand inside her hair and to wipe her hair. Are you following me, guys? So even if that, it is allowed. If it's allowed for the woman, also allowed for men who are wearing turban to go over the head. Question. Is it allowed for someone like Ammar has a kufi to wipe over his kufi? Is it allowed for you to wipe over your kufi too? Or a baseball hat would be allowed? Baseball hat, why? Because you don't like baseball? What about Red Sox? Would be allowed? Okay, basically, what do you guys think? Huh? You keeping it on. What's the difference between this and the turban? You tell me. You can pray with it, yeah. But what's the difference between this and the turban? One is wrap. Very well. Turban is a big deal to take it off and to put it on. It's not an easy task, you know, and it's long, and basically to put it versus the kufi, you just move it and you wipe underneath of it and you put it back. You know, there is no mashaqqa, there is no hardship in removing, but there is hardship to remove that turban. Type, what if you see today, there is some turban today sold ready, pre-made. Have you seen this? تجيك كده زي الطاقية. It has like, it's look like a hat. You take it, you put it on, and you put it off. It's like a fake turban. It's not like, it's already pre-made. If you go to Bilad al-Sham in Syria and Lebanon, they sell it like this. It's already made, and it's just, you know, Palestine, you have it and you just put it on. They never had a leather socks. They had a socks. But the socks is a different story. There's a lot of narration related to it. Okay? But here, and washing and wiping is quite different. Also, washing the feet versus just the head, you remove that anyway. Wallahi, I will tell you the truth. I don't have a personal position onto this. You know, because I see the point that Dr. Abdullah is making, which is, you know, if the issue to make it easy, you make it easy over everybody. So even if I have a hat like this, I can wipe over it as long as, you know, it basically cover, I can wipe over it. And we said, now the khimar, he said, even in the mekum mashdud, even the khimar, if it's not so tight, you still can wipe over it. So they made it easy for women. But maybe women, because of the hijab and put it, you know, uncover herself in front of public place, maybe that's why they said wipe over it. Because there is mashaqqa for her to go to cover herself, to be able to do her hair. You know, I understand. But a kufi like this, I don't feel comfortable really to say it's allowed. That's one. Two, even that thing that it is, you know, the imama that is, looks like a kufi today, I think it should be removed and you wipe over your head just to be on the safe side. That's what I'm comfortable with right now. Maybe this is something we should look into it more and read more. No, you don't need to have wudu when you put it on. Okay? You don't need to have wudu. You know what would be a good research paper? someone researched Ahkam al-Imama. Like look what the fuqaha, did the fuqaha make qiyas on the imama? Because al-imama anwa', some of them easy to put on, some easy to put on, and hard to put it on. Maybe somebody look, maybe we'll find some of the fuqaha said something we can use to search the issue of baseball hat or, cowboy hat somebody wearing or whatever, the kufis. It'll be interesting actually research a paper to be made. Okay, I didn't plan to take that long. Actually, I was planning to reach to your feet, but I'm still on your head. So inshallah, next week we will be talking about the ear and the feet. Inshallah ta'ala. If someone wants to do a little bit of homework, next week I'll talk to you about something very interesting in ilm al-hadith, in science of hadith, which is riwayat Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Abih an Jaddih. The narration of Amr ibn Shu'ayb, he said, my father said, my grandfather said, the Prophet ﷺ said. If someone would like to search this and read, is this narration, whenever Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Abih an Jaddih, is this acceptable or not acceptable? This is a very interesting sample. His grandfather. Yeah, that's part of your research. So, Amr ibn Shu'ayb. Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Abi an Jaddih is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. Or al-Jadd, that was supposedly meant in this statement. You can read about it, okay? It will give you an idea of something in ulama al-hadith, how they talk about this. This is a very interesting read to read. ما أقوال العلماء فيه. So, at least when you come to my class, you'll appreciate my khulasa. You'll appreciate like the summary of that long debate. Because some of these issues can be quite long. Like Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i, for example, Shaykh Ahmad Ma'bad wrote about this man's biography over 90 pages. What the ulama said about this narrator. Is he acceptable or bil lahi'a? 73 or 74 pages. If I teach in students in master program or PhD programs, or master program most likely, I would definitely consider this something they have to study. These two writings in science of hadith, because it's one of the best things that ever written, in my opinion, in regard to tell you how ulama classify a narrator is trustworthy or not. It's a role model, and he wrote this in his commentary in a book, Ibn Sayyid al-Nas, called النفح الشذي في شرح سنن الترمذي, in volume number 2. And he's one of my teachers. He's also senior in scholars committee in Egypt. أحد أعضاء هيئة كبار العلماء رحمه الله. He's a great alim رحمه الله. He's very funny, and he used to come, and he always have 2 apples in his suitcase. 2 apples. And we asked him, why 2 apples? He said, because I have 2 wives. So every one of them give me an apple. and so we used to make fun with the sheikh, said, which one is which? Sometimes one green and one red, one bigger than the others. So, anyway, before people get angry at us, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.